Welcome to Notorious Women Podcast, guys. I'm Lavetta.
And I'm Miriam.
And this is Notorious Women Podcast, a comedy podcast about some of history's most notorious women.
That's right.
Miriam was telling me that I guess she's not worth robbing because...
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. You could try. But, I don't know. I don't know how far you'll get on my credit card. Not far, honestly.
Oh,
I mean, I have,
I said,
a $10 bill. If you want it, just ask. I'll just give it to you.
I'm curious, what is a lot of money nowadays?
Listen, I actually think it's nothing less than $1 million. And even that, you can't retire. If someone, bequeathed my family $1 million, nobody would quit a job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, Sal would probably try. And I would be like, no. Because, you pay off the cars and the house. Cool. Right? You go on the vacation. I'm already planning it right now. And then, then you chunk, for the college. Okay.
Yeah. See.
Then you're you better get a job.
$1 million, if you don't live in California, per person, maybe a lot
then
of
you're
money.
good for life. Yeah, you're probably good for life. But if you do live in California, you literally cannot quit your day job.
And if you have children,
you have to get a second job on top of the $1 million you were just bequeathed.
Yeah, because them California taxes gonna hit,
girl,
and so.
Listen, I love California. People shit on it all day. I get that because it's it's expensive. Because it's expensive,
Yeah,
but then
it's so
sometimes you
wonderful.
can hear that when you don't know the person very well, and they're like California, it's because they don't like liberals. And I can tell you that first of all, it's kind of nice knowing that my rights as a human are mostly intact. Mostly. More so than in other states. And we all know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to pay that. I'm going to pay the tax of having my rights, my human rights, intact.
As you say
expensive.
that, wearing the LGBTQ plus IA flag on your shirt.
That's right.
Representing. I mean, it is Pride Month.
It is Pride Month. And it's funny because I went to Target. I'll do it. We tried to buy stuff for the whole of the family, and it did not go well because while they had the display, I think they were banking on the fact that people would be like, oh, good, they have the display. But no, I tried to purchase, and they were like, you cannot purchase. I could purchase
What do you mean?
some things. That's what they're doing because there was some threats because these bad MAGA Proud Boy humans are like, I don't like gay people, and they're bad people and they're trying to hurt this country. And they threatened, did you not know this? They threatened Targets. And
I
so
did hear that, but
yeah.
okay.
So what they did, they're like, well, we're going to pull some of the merchandise. But what they did in a lot of Targets is they left that merchandise up. There's a huge all right, this is the Pride area. Okay. And I thought, oh, okay. So maybe they're not doing it. But what happens is when you purchase it, they swipe it and it comes up, cannot sell. And it was yes. And I said, can you try it again? And she, cannot sell. And this poor girl has to be the face of a bastard. She feels so bad. I'm with children.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
So that's going into their bottom line. I was just in Target, literally, 4 hours ago, and I did not purchase what I was thinking about purchasing, which was a rainbow striped shirt.
Girl, you
it's
should have
a
got
linen number. I was like, nah, you can't rock this because the stripes have to be the right, width.
Listen, I think you could rock it. I think you're incorrect.
I don't know, but it looked cute, and I was like, I can wear this with a couple of black, with some linen pants. This is very cute.
Yes.
But if I had gone to the register and it said cannot purchase.
Oh, I talked to a manager. I managered that. I Karen managered that, but I didn't know.
Again,
yeah,
we're going to come up with another name because white ladies using their white ladiness for good are not Karens, they're Miriams. Yes.
Oh my God. I'm
You're
so
welcome.
honored. Because we're Jewish, obviously.
Yeah. Miriams.
But I fully did. I knew I wasn't going to get anywhere. I've read all the articles. But I just was like, listen, is that what what's going on? And she was like, it is,
poor
I'm so
workers.
sorry. Like, listen, everyone at our Target was like, so nice, so apologetic. They felt like shit. But I was like, I would just like, please tell your bosses and your boss's bosses that like, I'm pissed off. Like, I'm upset on behalf of my family today. And she was like, okay, I'll take a note. So then I,
who gets mad at rainbows? That's how
who
you know
gets
you're on
mad
the wrong
at rainbows?
side.
Oh my God.
History.
You know, right?
You get mad at rainbows.
Okay, now you have some problems because you're mad at a rainbow.
Are a bad person. But speaking of rainbows, I guess we should get started. I believe I am first this week. And in honor of, there's a lot of stuff going on this month. So June is Pride, of course.
Yes.
June is also Black Music History Month.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And June is also where we have Juneteenth.
I did know that, but I'm going to write down Black Music History Month.
Yes, it's Black Music History Month is June.
That's good to know.
It's good to know. And
oh my God.
And in honor of Juneteenth, my notorious woman today, you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. She is, hold on, let me get out my paper. Let's see.
I'm nervous.
She is, oh, that's terrible. I try. My notorious woman this week is Henrietta, quote, Aunt Rita, end quote, Williams Foster. So Henrietta Williams Foster, a.k.a. Aunt Rita. Okay. Have you ever heard of Aunt Rita?
Absolutely not, but I'm excited.
Okay. So the Juneteenth connection will become apparent very soon. And before we get started, some of my sources, which were all over the internet and different sources. One comes from the Corpus Christi Caller-Times, an article written by a writer by the name of Allison Ehrlich from 2020, and a Shondaland.com article from 2022 written by Janice Rachel Littlejohn. I put on my glasses because apparently I'm blind still. And so, as well as like many other sources, but this is I want to talk a little bit about the history of Black people in Texas.
I would love that.
Yeah, in honor of Juneteenth, which is coming up next week. So, Henrietta Williams Foster was born in Mississippi. Unfortunately, the year is unknown because she was born into bondage. But we do know that she had 5 sisters. And as part of her bondage, she was brought to Texas to work on a ranch.
Like as a child?
As a child.
Like,
as a young or a very young woman. Again, like a lot of enslaved people, we don't know the exact year of her birth. But she was brought to Texas, like I said, in bondage to work on a ranch. Okay. Now, even though not a lot is known of her earlier life, we do know a lot about her later adult life from oral interviews conducted in the 1980s and 1990s by Victoria-based historian and author Louis S. O'Connor. Okay. And he wrote a book. A lot of his research, rather, was like sort of compiled and put into a book called Black Cowboys of Texas, which was published by Texas A&M University Press. Okay. So again, he conducted these. Thank God for historians and authors. Right? Like he the
ones that talk about all the things no one else talks about. You know?
Yeah, or like you get to hear people's, like I know there's a project where they interviewed, I believe in the 70s and the 80s, former enslaved people who were, obviously like children, like little kids, but like just to hear their voices and some of their, experiences firsthand. It's just so rich it's just amazing. So Louis O'Connor, again, he interviewed a bunch of people in the 1980s and the 1990s who knew Aunt Rita or Ms. Rita. So I'll refer to her as Ms. Rita or Aunt Rita. He interviewed multiple people.
Aunt Ritty, how would you spell that? Ritty?
Oh, Rittie.
IE. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I'm sure it's a take on Henrietta or Retta.
I think in words, like written down, and that's how my brain works. I don't know if it's good or bad. It is what it is.
It's just, no, not at all. Not at all. We all have different ways of learning. So, processing information. Now some of the people that he interviewed, this author and historian, were Aunt Ritty's great granddaughter, Josephine Spriggs Green, and her great great granddaughter, Dessalene Spriggs Bearfield in 1990.
Okay. Wow.
Both of them had spent time with their relative as children when they were younger. So by this time they were older women, and they had memories of spending time with her when she was an old lady.
Oh my God.
And they also heard stories about her from her, but also about her throughout the years. Some of the dates, and again, with older people, sometimes the dates get mixed up. They don't remember exact dates as much, but they kind of generally remember that. So, but it's understandable because a lot of these stories are from 50 years prior. So a lot of these stories they're telling in the 90s, they're telling stories from the 40s, the 30s and the 40s. So, but the information that O'Connor was able to get out of them it paints a picture of a tenacious, tough as nails woman, Aunt Ritty. Now, according to, again, her great granddaughter, Josephine, Aunt Ritty said, quote, life was tough. This is what Aunt Ritty was telling her. Life was tough. She felt bad about the way she was treated. Talking about her experience being enslaved.
Yeah.
They didn't hardly have any food or clothing. She didn't like being separated from her sisters. She never knew where they went, end quote. So when she came to Texas, she was separated from her 5 sisters.
What fuckers.
You know, and just imagine being torn away from them and it's Color Purple all over again and never seeing them again.
Yeah.
Except in that movie, they get to see each other when they're old ladies.
Yeah.
Now,
eventually, they're making another one, right?
Oh, yeah. So apparently it's based on the musical, which is based on the book.
Oh.
And not the movie. Yeah. So
I loved the book, maybe more so than the original movie. So sorry. Because the movie was great.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I think at the time, a lot of people had problems with the movie, but then it's become a Black music classic or a movie classic in general. And it's still emotional. I can't watch that scene where Nettie and Celia are torn apart. I cannot watch that scene.
Listen,
nope.
I read the book, and there are a couple moments where I cried, but it's beautiful. It's beautifully written. It's beautifully told. I saw the movie. I didn't stop crying for 2 hours. I just cried the whole time.
Oh my God. It's just, I can't. It's just, and Danny Glover is so good and evil. But yeah, apparently this new adaptation is based on the book and the musical. So
I'm obviously going to have to watch it.
Yeah, obviously. Obviously, I'm going to watch it. Even though I'm going to cry, I'm going to totally watch it.
I'm going to just get my tissue box. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It's just, it's Color Purple, of course. Alice Walker, read it, get it. Okay, so
I love Alice Walker. Go on, sorry.
Now, Aunt Ritty, so she was brought to Texas to work on a ranch as an enslaved person, and because of that, she mainly worked with cattle, and that's a tough business. It's hard work.
Yeah.
And she apparently learned how to ride horses, and it was said that she was the only woman that worked with the men. One of her descendants recalled, quote, Aunt Ritty would move around and go with the cow crowd from the different ranches. Wherever men were working cattle, she was working with them. She rode side saddle and bareback on her white horse, end quote.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, the whole side saddle thing, I can't, I teach Pilates, from a balanced body alignment perspective, it's a bad idea. I'm just, take feminism off to the side for just a moment. Okay, it's going to twist you in one direction for too long. You have to, balance it out. You might as well just ride a regular horse regularly. Okay.
I mean, I think horses are beautiful. I'm terrified of them because they're large. But I've been told they're like, no, you will love horses if you ever get a chance to work with them. Because I'm a sucker, and all animals know that I'm a sucker.
You would. They would just be like, Lavetta, you're one of us. Come, roam free. And
I mean,
like,
they're so
bad.
beautiful.
Let's go. They are beautiful. And
I respect animals, and I'm like, a lion's beautiful too, but I don't think I should be near a lion because he'll eat me. I'd be like, what's up, girl? You smell good. Okay, so back to Aunt Rita. So now, as part of his interview series, he also interviewed two former cowboys who worked with Aunt Rita in 1982 by the name of Simi Ridoff and Monroe Bailey Shaw. Okay. Monroe Bailey Shaw. They were cowboys, and they also knew of Aunt Rita. And they remember that she would ride horses astride in long skirts. And they said of her that she could handle the cattle, throw calves, and perform all the same work the men did. She also kept the men in line, apparently.
All right.
Quote, the old hands who knew her say you felt about her just like a man, and that's the way you better act, or that woman would kill you. She had a butcher knife. She had a butcher knife with her at all times, and she would cut your throat. End quote.
Good woman. That's what I say to that. Good woman.
Then they go on to say that, quote, they didn't bother her. She was ready for any trouble, and the men were afraid of her. She would put a club on you if you didn't act right. She could, yeah. She's just, end quote. Like,
yes, girl.
Aunt Rita's like, don't be fooled. Don't let this skirt fool you, fuckers. Now, like most enslaved people, it was illegal to learn how to read or write, so Aunt Rita received no formal education.
Right.
But that didn't stop her from leading a productive life. In addition to her work on as a ranch hand, as a cowgirl, she worked as a midwife, and she knew how to attend to wounds. According to her descendants, quote, she knew lots of things that educated people didn't know. Aunt Rita knew how to keep a woman from having kids.
Oh.
She was married to a Williams and a Foster, but Aunt Lizzie Dunham was the only child she ever had. One of her descendants said, quote, Rita knew a lot about herbs also, end quote.
Oh, girl. She's my hero.
So she's helping the ladies who get in a little bit of trouble.
Let me tell you, I'm saying that she couldn't read or write, but she was a doctor. Okay, yep. Like in a successful one.
Yep.
That's incredible.
The fact that she only had one child.
Yeah, she knew what to do.
She knew what she do because women had no choice, no birth control.
Nope. But I mean, honestly, like if you think about what birth control is made of, and if you really understand the herbs and the land, I mean, I don't know shit. I really don't. But like, I've read books about this. Like there are things you can do to help control things. Didn't they have birth control back in like the Egyptian times, like different herbs?
I'm sure they did, probably with varying degrees of success.
Right.
I think midwives...
Works until it doesn't.
I know. I think midwives are probably, probably the unsung heroes of history because, usually they're also women and they can understand the woman's body probably better than a male doctor could. And they can also relate. I mean, I'm just making all this up. I don't know if this is true. But
on our Instagram a couple of months ago, I posted a thing. Guys, go look at it. It's a couple of months ago. But about Black women, I think in the South, made up something like 80% of the midwives. And that is 100% of how women had their babies. Yeah. And it was a whole culture, and people knew and trusted, and it wasn't until like white doctors, I think in the 50s, started sort of kicking them out and taking over. You don't say. A woman dominates an industry, and then men come in and kick the women out. You don't Not
say.
Just a Black woman, and then a white man comes in and kicks them out. I don't know if you've ever heard of that happening before.
I don't know what you're talking about. That never happens. That never happens.
I must be lying to you.
You must have blocked out or blacked out or something and read it. Like, okay.
I think they saw the white men and were like, oh, God, thank God. Someone's here to do it better. Woohoo.
Well, also, I mean, the study of gynecology, the history, they used to experiment on Black slave women.
Yes, they did.
And there's a whole history of that. You know, they did a survey recently, and I think it's something like 60 or 70% of medical students thought Black people don't feel pain the same way.
Yes, I read the study.
Non-Black people do.
Yeah. Didn't Shakespeare, who was probably anti-Semitic also, but in his attempt to make Jews a little more human, right? Do we not bleed the same blood? I mean, I'm not getting that quote exactly right, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that was 400 years ago. You guys, and you're med students, you're stupid. I'm sorry.
Any excuse to treat people differently. Anyway,
right? What the hell?
Excuse. Well, you know, like all marginalized people just do the best they can where they are in history. And Aunt Rita, Miss Henrietta, Aunt Rita was doing the best she could. I mean, the fact that she was an enslaved person, you know, and the personal trauma being torn away from your kin, as we would say, and coming to, because Mississippi to Texas, even though it's the South, it's a very different, Texas is very different. Yes. I don't know, people who don't live in the United States don't understand, like, even for Americans, other parts of the country are very foreign to us. It's like a culture shock when you move there. Like,
100% is. I've been to Texas, and 100 years ago I went on a theater tour, and I remember thinking I had lived my life, and I understood. I was like, oh, this is not the same. Okay.
It's different. And I mean, the United States is so big as well. Yeah. It's like, it's so big. And so I think, you know, people don't really understand that. But I just think about like her interpersonal, her inner life, right? Like just being in bondage. And then again, because of Juneteenth, them fuckers didn't tell the enslaved people that they were freed from the Emancipation Proclamation. And so they didn't learn about it until June 19th, 1865, hence Juneteenth, people. So
if you're wondering why there is a holiday, that's why.
I just can't get over it. They're like, we're just going to ignore it. Like, nope, nothing to see here. Nope, nothing new here. Nope. But just, you know, having that experience, but also, you know, I would imagine, and I think people who work with animals can say how therapeutic it is. And I think those people become really good at working with animals because animals can feel your spirit, and they learned how to need each other. Now I'm getting all philosophical, but my hope is that she found some solace in being able to work with the animals as well as she did. And to be good at, you know, being a midwife, doing all of the things that she did to help her fellow human beings and people in her community. So, and obviously she was married and she had a child. So she built a life and built a family. So, but you know, the fact that we don't know more about her from her own words is a shame. You know, what we do know though, is that, as she got older, she began losing her eyesight. So she stopped her midwife duties. She eventually moved in with her daughter, Elizabeth, in Refugio County, where she appears in the 1920 federal census. So that's why the census is important. Now, an exact date of her death can't be found. And her descendants, Green and Bearfield, had conflicting dates. One says 1926, another one says 1928. But she was buried in Refugio and now has a place in the Legends of South Texas ranch life. She was one of the original cowgirls. And I just want to leave you this quote from one of her descendants, Green. She said, quote, "She wasn't scared of no one and she didn't take foolishness off of nobody." She would cuss and lay people out, and she could hoodoo people away from the house if she didn't like them, end quote. And for that, ladies and gentlemen, Henrietta is my shero, because I don't take no foolishness either. Don't bring no foolishness around here. As I wrap that up, so that's pretty much most of the information we know about Henrietta Williams Foster, aka Aunt Rita. But I just wanted to give people a little bit of a context, because it was, you know, that's pretty short life story that I just told. But I just want to give people context about, like, cultural context about Juneteenth and the place of Black people in the Old West, Americana folklore. And because of, now Black people have always known, because again, Black men were the first cowboys. Hint, it's in the name, cowboy. It's in the name.
Oh,
cowgirl. Yeah, it's in the name.
Stop. Right. Why isn't it cowman? Cowwoman.
Exactly.
Well, women, not yet.
And it's like, also because these were enslaved people who were forced to do this kind of work. But, I just want to give people kind of reference for that. So again, the original cowboys, even though Black men were the original cowboys, but once like that whole sort of Old West cowboy, cowgirl, ranch life became embedded in the rugged individualism, right, of the Old West imagery, the contributions of Black people were smudged out of history to make room for the Long Ranger, which we now know was based on Bass Reeves. But the writer knew he couldn't sell books if Lone Ranger was a Black man. So he changed it to a white guy and gave him a Native American sidekick. So, he's trying to sell the books. It's a problem.
No, still a problem.
But, but once, again, what we were talking about earlier, once white men decided that they wanted to take on that moniker, then they smudge out the, and this is done on purpose, get rid of the original contributions of Black people.
It happens. It's a story that is retold in so many different ways over and over again. And it's almost exhausting. Wouldn't it be just easier to tell the truth at some point?
No, not for some assholes, But because of this, they were original cowboys and cowgirls. After emancipation reached Texas in 1865, Black cowboys and girls continued the work that they were forced to as enslaved people. And so many of them continued to work on the ranches that they had been enslaved on, and many actually eventually owned their own ranches.
Oh, that's good.
And continued their skills of taming and training horses, tending to livestock, and driving thousands of cattle on the trails across America. In fact, in Texas, prior to the Civil War, enslaved people made up 30% of the population, and freed Black cowhands contributed vastly to the development of the cattle industry, with the skills that they had learned on ranches and trails as enslaved people. Now, after the Civil War and June 19th, 1865, when 2,000 Union troops arrived in Galveston Bay, Texas, to announce that the Emancipation Proclamation had been passed in 1863, and that the war was over.
So pissed off. They must have been so mad.
Well, I think it's probably relief, and then immediately a lot of people
at first it's
went
relief.
in search of their family, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Black people didn't have time to be mad. They had to, and also you have to eat, because it's like, what does that mean? So according to history, more than 250,000 enslaved Black people in the state were free by the proclamation. So immediately, many cowboys and cowgirls transferred their skills to work in other fields and became well-respected top hand, expert ropers, and horse breakers. Now, this year, the African American Museum in Dallas, visitors, they had an exhibit called The American Old West, the exhibit was called, quote, Black Cowboys, semicolon, an American Story.
Nice.
And it basically just explored the contributions. Some of the stuff we're talking about here, it focuses a lot on men, of course. Yeah. But it also focuses on a few women that we know of through folklore, through, word of mouth. And one of them is Henrietta Williams Foster. And so the exhibit was on view at Fair Park Museum until April of this year.
Okay.
And Ronald W. Davis II, and he was the curator on this project.
Okay.
He and his longtime friend and arts advocate, Aranetta Pierce, they think this exhibit was very important, particularly in Texas, to talk about how, Black cowboys and Black cowgirls were denigrated, marginalized, and erased. And so they feel like the exhibit was a way of them bringing justice to people who have been denied justice.
Absolutely.
You know, also, you know, Nope is about like, I don't know. Have you seen Nope, the movie?
Sal is literally in the middle of watching it. Here's the deal with me watching anything horror. Sal has to watch it first. And then he gets me through it. Like
I loved it. Some of my friends did not like it. And I'm like, guys, it's basically just Jaws in the sky. I don't know.
Well,
but they're not like horror people.
I loved Get Out, and it's the same director. So, you know, but he literally is in the middle of watching it now. So
it starts off with, the trailer was that it showed the first, it showed like a sort of a first moving picture. You know, they would do like literally the flipping of the pictures.
Oh yeah,
of a jockey, a black man riding a horse.
Okay.
And people, when that came out, like before the movie came out, like about a year before, people were like, "What is that?" And it's like, "Well, yeah, the original cowboys are black. What do you guys like?"
Well,
even though,
I think it's really important because if you look at, I've only been to Texas once, but I went. Oh yeah, I was on tour. So we went all over, and I think they're very proud of their heritage, like a cowboy mentality. We do it bigger, da 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 da. Like for them to know their history, where this cowboy mentality comes from, and like why not? And I think there's a lot of argument of like, oh well, we can be proud of ourselves too. I'm like, sure. But you can't steal from someone else. Like, be proud of who you are, all that you are, but like, give homage to where you got stuff.
I mean, that's all we're saying. Just you know, just share the credit because, you know, the aesthetic, the physical aesthetic of like, you know, the cowboy boots and even the way the hat is, that comes from our Mexican brothers and sisters to the south of us. Like that's heavily influenced with the fringe. That comes from not only the native people of Mexico, but also our native people here in North America. Like, so all of it is combined because that's what America is, right? America's the land of the remix.
Listen, it's the land of the remix. Exactly. And it's no different than when I'm like, you know, when someone helps my child with a homework thing, all you got to do is say thank you. You're going to turn it in. You're going to get all the credit. Someone helped you. Thank you. And then turn it in. That's not a problem. And if someone says, oh, did you get help because I was having trouble? You be like, I totally did. This person helped me. Cool. And then you could pay that person a ton of money and they can help you. It's, you know what I mean? It's just like, just say thank you. It's not that hard.
And it's not that hard, but here we are. But, you know, also being decent is not that hard, but it seems to be hard for people. So, I just want to conclude with, if you guys are listening and you want to find out a little bit more about like other women like Aunt Rita, because there are some other women as well. I just covered her particularly because she's from Texas, and I wanted to give homage to, again, Juneteenth that's coming up this week. But there's like been a resurgence, I would say probably since the 70s and the 80s, a huge resurgence of like, you know, exploring the history or the connection of Black people with the whole, you know, sort of Old West, cowboy, cowgirl aesthetic, Americana, which is a part of Americana, because the whole cowboy Old West thing is uniquely American. And so it's which is so interesting because other cultures really dig that kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, they do.
And it's just so funny when they remix it, their version of it. Like when you see like in some Japanese aesthetic, they loved the whole Old West, or how like, you know, Seven Samurai was adapted into a Western. You know, it's like the Magnificent Seven. It's like, because it's basically that sort of like rugged individualism that is, you know, very much a part of like the fabric of America and what America means. But you know, just in recent years, I think people are realizing the origins of like that whole sort of concept. And again, the original cowboys and cowgirls were enslaved Black people in this country. And so, you know, there's all kinds of resources now in big cities, in places like Texas, in the South, in the North, in the Midwest, that you can sort of get your cowboy, cowgirl thing on, right? So one of those is the National Multicultural Western Heritage Museum in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, cool.
There's also a National Cowgirl Hall of Fame.
What? That's amazing. Okay.
Yep. It also features and other inductees and ranchers like Molly Taylor Stevenson, Colorado pioneer woman Clara Brown, former U.S. Marine and equestrian trailblazer Patricia E. Kelly, and Southern California real estate broker Maisha Akbar, who founded Compton's Richland Farms and established a nonprofit Compton Junior Posse Youth Equestrian Program.
Oh my God.
So there's all kinds of things. There's also, I think there's like a black, I think it's like the black, not the Black Cowboy Ranch. It's like a show that's coming here this summer that I saw it somewhere, and I was like, oh my God, I would totally love to go to that. Like, it's just so like at the fairgrounds and like here in California.
Yeah. It's like, I can't describe it, but I know what you're saying. There's horses involved. There's
horses involved. So there's all kinds of places that you can get your love of all things Western and ranchy and horsey and whatever. Giddy up. Giddy up.
Do you know when I first learned about like our history of cowboys is not what I thought they were? It was when I saw Blazing Saddles. Yeah. I don't know if that's like a historical moment, like place to go, but it's funny. I don't know though. Like, does it hold up? I don't remember, but it was funny when I was 11.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember Blazing Saddles being incredibly silly.
Yes.
And I love that. That is my
funny
thing. It's like, but
anything before like 2007, I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know.
It's probably, even then. No, seriously, like we have children and it'll be like PG made 2006. And my husband and I look at each other like, I just don't know if this is appropriate.
Yep. Like, I know.
And half the time we have to like pause. All right, don't hate us. But we got to explain that was not an okay moment.
Not an okay moment, but that's just a little something, again, is an homage to Juneteenth that's coming up this week. And that is my notorious woman this week, Henrietta Williams Foster, a.k.a. Aunt Rita.
So, I love her. Awesome.
Thank you. Well, who's your notorious woman this week?
I am bringing back from last week, Shirley Chisholm.
That's right. Part two. Right.
Let's continue. Let's continue the story.
Yes.
All right. So I ended with Shirley running for the presidency. Okay?
Okay.
So July 1971, she formally announced that, what? No, I'm lying to you because I can't read. It's fine. It's been a long week. Okay. So she explored her candidacy July 1971. She formally announced it January 25th, 1972. Okay, so she called for in her what is it? In her run for office, her platform. That's the word.
You're welcome.
I love words. Thank you so much. She called for a bloodless revolution at the forthcoming Democratic nomination convention. So she became the first Black, I think, person. It says African. It said African American, but I think, to run for a major party's nomination for president. It also made her. So it says here that it made her the first woman ever to run for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. Now, you and I know that there was another woman who ran. But
I think she ran under the Republican because the Republicans used to be the Liberal Party back in the day.
I know. It's so weird. Sometimes I see an old person be like, I used to be a Democrat. I'm like, no, you weren't my Democrat. Trust me. So she describes herself. This is how she described herself. She offered a new articulation of American identity. She says, and I have a video of her saying this on her Instagram. She says, I am not the candidate of Black America, although I am Black and proud. I am not the candidate of the women's movement of this country, although I am a woman and equally proud of that. I am the candidate of the people, and my presence before you symbolizes a new era in American political history. So, I mean, you watch her say that. Go on our Insta, guys, and watch her say that. I'm ready to vote for you right now. I'm ready.
So interesting though. Like, I feel like maybe because it was the time, it's 1972, but like now when people give that sort of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of like, I'm Black, but that's not important. Like it feels like a separation from your race and your gender identity. But again, that's 2023 eyes looking at someone who said that in 1972, who's running for a major political party's shot at the presidency. Because you have to, it's sort of like, well, Barack Obama's like, I'm everybody's president. All the presidents have to say that except one.
Yes,
I'm everybody's president. But, I wonder like in 2023, because someone like Shirley Chisholm did say that in 1972, we no longer have to say that now.
You know what? That's a really, really good point. Because I can see where she's coming from at this moment in time. She has no precedent.
Nope.
Zero. That's why she's amazing. Like, that's why she's so incredible and so fascinating, because she did not have a Black Barbie doll growing up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, she was not told, by society that she could do anything she wanted to be. Maybe by her family. But society was not giving. And she is here running for president and having people behind her. So I see where she's coming from. And I also give her credit for saying, but I am Black and I'm proud of that.
Yeah,
and I am a woman and I am proud of that.
Yeah,
but I want you to look, and I feel like what she is saying is, it's not that I'm not proud of these things. It's that I want you to look past that to see the bigger picture.
Yeah, because you have to say that in 1972 too. It's like, I mean, it's politics too. Like, I think people want to give all politicians, because people forget that it's public service. Running for office is public service. You serve the people, and a lot of people are dumb. You gotta simplify things.
No, listen, people are dumb, people are racist, people are misogynist. She needs those people's votes.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and that is politics right there. Like, I'm Black, but don't think about that. I'm a woman, but you can ignore that too. It's fine. It's bullshit.
Yeah, but she, again, it's
reality.
19. I'm going to give her, I mean, she's Shirley Chisholm, so of course she has grace. I mean, she's doing this in 1972. And the first woman to technically run for presidency is Victoria Woodall in 1883.
Yes.
But nothing like this. Yeah. So
I tried to get my kid to become her in a class project. Aww. But, he went with Alexander Graham Bell. It's fine.
It's fine.
But I was like, there are more American icons than meets the eye.
Light bulbs are cool when you're a kid.
They really are.
Yeah.
It's fine. Drew a little light bulb. It was cute.
Or no.
It's fine.
Is it light bulbs or the phone?
No, the telephone. And I knew that because it was basically my project. Okay. But also my kids are geniuses. Okay. I can have all the things. Okay. So her campaign was underfunded. They spent a total of $300,000, which is something like $4 in regular person, because these campaigns are so expensive. And she struggled to be regarded as a serious candidate instead of a symbolic political figure. So the Democratic political establishment, I mean, surprise, they ignored her. And her Black male colleagues also did not provide a ton of support.
Are you kidding me? Why?
I know. It's weird.
Because her being Black doesn't stop them from being sexist?
Turns out. I know.
Okay.
It's weird.
Okay. And just so you know, 300,000 is 2.1 million today.
Yeah, and it's nothing.
That's nothing.
It's crazy. And she said, this is a quote, "When I ran for the Congress, I ran for president." Let me start that again, because again, I can't read today. Okay, try that again. Quote, "When I ran for the Congress, when I ran for president, I met more discrimination as a woman than for being Black. Men are men." Like, oh, okay.
Oh
girl.
my God. I wonder, I don't know if that's, I mean, obviously that's her experience, but I wonder, like, it's when you're dealing with men, maybe your gender is. So if you're dealing with white men, black men, other kinds of men, then they're like, wow, silly woman.
I mean,
and then if they're non-black men, it's also like silly black woman.
I mean, right. But everyone wants her in her place.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, men are, listen, a racist white man will hate a black man just for being black. But one thing they can both agree on is that keep them women in their place.
Mm-hmm. They can share a beer over that one. That one's fine. Oh, it's exhausting. Okay. But her husband was actually very supportive of her candidacy. His quote, "I have no hangups about a woman running for president," end quote, which is like kind of miraculous, but it shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Like why? Like we're crediting that. Okay.
I know, but that's why she married him. So
yeah, that's true. It's kind of like a new father who changes a diaper. I'm like, I'm not going to give you any credit. You made a baby.
No.
Like, no, zero credit. And there's another diaper to be changed in about 4 seconds. It's your turn again. How do I feel? Okay. My husband was wonderful. Shout out to him. When they were babies, he changed a ton of diapers. Okay, let's move on. Because if he hears this, he'll be mad if I didn't say that. And so I said it. Okay, moving on. So there was a concern about her security because they didn't give her any security. Her husband became her bodyguard until she finally got protection from the U.S. Secret Service in May 1972. So she focused on the March 14th Florida primary, which I thought was amusing in this day and age. She said she thought it would be receptive due to, quote, "it's blacks, youth, and a strong women's movement." You know.
This is where
thought you'd have an opinion.
Well, this is where the Yankees, even the black Yankees, don't understand the South. It's a whole different world of crazy in the South.
Oh, yeah. It turns out.
Particularly in Florida.
In
Florida.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but bless her heart. Like she really
tried.
Because it does make sense on paper. She's like, oh, the numbers don't lie.
The numbers are there. That is true. So she did get primary votes, but she also ultimately lost the Democratic primary to George McGovern. And since we don't know about President George McGovern, obviously the Democrats lost that year.
Oh shit!
They
that's a burn.
I'm just saying.
Ooh,
okay.
The shade, baby, the shade. Okay.
Step down, George. Okay. Happy to shame him. I don't know this poor man. I'm sorry. You're his like grandniece or something. So basically no one took her seriously. She did better than expected, but she wasn't backed by the right organizations because the Democratic Party, especially at the time, was like, yeah, no, we like white men more, you know.
It's like, don't you have a cake to cook, lady? A cake or chicken to cook or something? For your husband?
Yeah, like your husband is hungry, and you know he could use a drink. And
I mean, I suspect that she knew. Like, you hope that the reception would be better, but you know, Miss Shirley Chisholm was a very smart woman.
Yes.
She was putting that little crack in the glass ceiling. And I mean, I would suspect that she knows, I mean, you hope. You're like, I mean, maybe I'll get close. Maybe I'll get the nomination, and you know, this is a real fight, or get close to a nomination. You know,
right?
But she's a very smart woman, so I wonder if she was just like, no, I hope for the best. Let's see if this works. Let's do it, because you got to be optimistic. You got to be really insanely optimistic.
Yeah, you really, really do, and that's, you know, more power to her for having that. For me, like, I'm in awe of her mental stamina. Yeah,
me too.
Like that is the most impressive thing, because it is hard. It is emotionally draining to be on display and to fight for these things that are so important.
Yep.
But that's incredible. There was a documentary made during her campaign. The German filmmaker Peter Lilienthal shot a documentary called Shirley Chisholm for President for the German television channel ZDF, which I wonder if we could get a copy of. That sounds interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
So this is another interesting moment, I think. So she created controversy when she visited rival and ideological opposite George Wallace, remember him, in the hospital soon after his shooting in May 1972 during the presidential primary campaign. So several years later, she was working on a bill to give domestic workers the right to a minimum wage. And it's shocking that they didn't already have that right, but that's another story for another day. He helped her gain votes from enough Southern congressmen to push the legislation through the House. So I think, they can.
Yeah, she's politicking.
It's politicking, and it's helping the people ultimately.
Yeah, and I mean, also for people who don't know George Wallace, I'm going to do my famous...
Do it.
Terrible George Wallace
Do
accent.
it. I'm ready.
Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever.
Oh my God, you are so good at that.
Forever. Those his famous words he had to eat.
Yeah.
And I again, because she's from the North and not from the South, and I can't stress that enough because I think people, especially people who tend to think that Black people are a monolith, but we're not. I mean, we are striving for the same thing, but we have to use different tactics to get there. And, I would imagine that some of her Black colleagues were very upset with her for meeting with George Wallace. Because, again, he said segregation forever.
Yeah, it was bad. He was bad. He was kind of the epitomized badness. Like, he was the white man opposing all of the changes that were being fought for.
Yeah. And so he, I would imagine, and also because she doesn't really have a personal experience with how virulent and violent the racism is in the South.
Yeah.
Because she is from the North. And so there's that. But she's also a politician. She's also a person, and you have to work with people to get stuff done. Because we don't live in a monarchy.
Right. So. Which I feel like is not happening now. And it's like, if you could get, I mean, truth be told, some people are not, because I would imagine that her Black colleagues were upset with her because they're like, well, you're not going to get anything out of him. So you just alienated your colleagues and you're not going to get anything out of him. But then he surprised her by actually helping her get something passed. Right.
But she did take a risk, like going to see him and and when you're like, oh, those people are decent, let's just talk to them. Some people you can't talk to because they're intent on your destruction. Well,
I know I have a friend who works for, he gets people to register to vote, and they actually go to, Republican leaning places, and they go and they talk to them. And what they do is they try to get down to the nitty gritty. Like what matters to you? Oh, Social Security staying, right? Oh, you want Medicare benefits. Oh, you have. And then a lot of times they're like, well, the Republican candidates are trying to scrap all of that. You know what I mean? So they're trying to be like, instead of an ideologue here and an ideologue there, it's like, let's break down what people are doing for you. And
but see, that's what I'm saying. When you break it down to them, they still choose to vote for the other people because how people feel is more important than the facts oftentimes when it comes to politics.
Which is like terrible because that's not what gets things done.
It's like what they accuse Black people of. I'm not voting for a Black person because they Black. I'm not voting for what's that man with the donkey teeth? Tim Scott. What is that? Is that the man with the donkey teeth?
I have no idea.
Talking about racism don't exist no more.
Oh, cute.
Clarence Thomas' ass can fall down a dark well.
I
wouldn't vote for Herman Cain. Nah. R.I.P. Herman Cain.
Listen, Jared Kushner can suck it. You know what I mean? Like people do. Well, like I got a lot of that. Well, his son-in-law is. I was like, I don't give a shit if he converts to Judaism right now, he's a bad man. Like, what do we?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, no, some people you can reason with, and I say, hey, yeah, definitely try and reason with people and get down to the nitty gritty. But because there are a lot of people in this country who, even when you get them down to like, well, this candidate doesn't agree with it, and they're like, oh, you like that? Oh,
yeah, that was really heartfelt. I felt that.
Yeah, I mean, and some of them know that they accuse black people of voting against their interests, but it's like, no, that's not our side. It's the poor people.
I mean,
side, like,
yeah. I mean,
I've even had like black people try and convince me Republicans are more for black people. In what reality are you living, sir? Are you living on Earth 2.3? Because that you ain't living on this Earth.
Someone tried to pull me over aside. I don't know if I told you this. I was at a like party, and this girl pulls me aside and was like, "This was years ago. T-Dog was still, in the house that's painted white. Anyways, this is traumatic. I don't like him." But she goes, "Don't you think he's good for Israel?" And I go, "I don't think anyone who is anti-Semitic is good for Israel." And she didn't even argue that he wasn't anti-Semitic, because he kind of is, right? But he's more known to being, racist and, and other things. But like, no, that white supremacy is white supremacy. I said, I was like, he's a white supremacist. So no, he's not good for Israel. What are you doing?
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, some people, I'm all for like talking with people, but once you've realized that that their choices are not based in fact, then you're just talking to a wall. Yeah. But bless these people for doing God's work. I swear.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure.
Bless them.
You and I just talk to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice.
Because again, I'm like Aunt Rita. I ain't got time for foolishness.
You don't. You just walk away. She just walks away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So throughout her tenure in Congress, a couple of things she did. She worked to improve opportunities for inner city residents. She supported spending increases for education, healthcare, and other social services. She was very concerned with instances of discrimination against women, and especially those against impoverished women. Mm-hmm. She focused on land rights for Native Americans. She opposed the Vietnam War and was a vocal opponent of the U.S. military draft. During the Jimmy Carter administration, she called for better treatment of Haitian refugees. She was a forceful advocate for the Equal Rights Amendment, believing that the initial value of passing it would be the social and psychological, would have the social and psychological effects that we needed, right? And it would more than any economic or legal impact, that we needed the social and psychological effect of the ERA. I remember arguing about the ERA in government class in high school, because my government, I'm going to take a moment. My government teacher said, why don't, the ERA didn't pass. And I raised my hand and said, why didn't it pass? And he said, ready? You ready?
I'm ready.
He said, because we don't need it anymore.
Oh.
Girl, I got a C in that class. And I'll tell you why I got a C in that class. Because he did not like me. That's why I got a C in that class. Because I had a response.
What was your response?
I said, that's just not true. And then he may have said other things too. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I was right. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't need the ERA anymore. Then pay us the same. Okay. You know what? I'm tired. So she also was aware of how much the second wave feminism in the United States focused on the concerns of middle-class white women, like adopting the term Ms., which is like, it's fine, but like we have Ms. and we have Mrs., but like we only have Mr. Like I would like a Misters or something. You know what I'm saying?
Not a Misters. No.
Miss, I need to know if you're married, right? By your name. So let's change that. So at the 1973 convention of the National Women's Political Caucus, she said that women of color were faced with double discrimination that especially affected them economically, and that the women's movement needed to make changes to better reflect such women and their concerns. And scholar Julie Gallagher has written that her pressure in this regard did make some difference in the focus of the women's movement during the subsequent years in the 70s, which is interesting to me because, I mean, it's still pretty bad. So that she made a dent in it and made it better. Wow.
Yes, we'd take that.
Yeah, right? Okay, so she did like get married and then divorced and stuff. I'll just talk about that real quick. Her first marriage ended in divorce in 1977. Then November 26th, she married Arthur Hardwick Jr., who was a former New York State Assemblyman. They knew each other when they were both in the New York State Assembly and was now a Buffalo, New York liquor store owner. So she started spending more time in Buffalo, which brought some political criticism that she was being inattentive to her district. And then mid to the late 70s, there was growing dissatisfaction with her among some liberals in New York State and city politics. And they felt that that too often sided with the Democratic Party bosses over the liberal black or feminist challengers, because the Democrats love to infight. They love nothing more.
Well, to be fair, people like to infight, even on the other side.
That's
people
true.
Oh,
that's a good point.
Yeah, some people just like to fight.
Yeah, it's true. So there were a lot of instances where she was supporting, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but that she supported less progressive candidates, politically, that she was voting for people who were not going beyond. I mean, I don't think she was voting for the Republicans, but I mean,
yeah, it's like an internal, that's going on today, right? The squad versus, other people. But I also think people, I was listening to a podcast and I was like, that's a very good point. Again, what I was making that distinction between the North and the South, you're in Congress. And so you have tons of other colleagues in Congress, and what the messaging that works in your district may not work in another district.
Right.
And I think that's something that Nancy Pelosi, that's why she was such a great Speaker of the House, because she understood, that if you need to make me the enemy to win in your district and we keep that district Democratic, then that's what you do.
And it's fine, because it is what it is. I've always said, what was the Kevin Spacey show on Netflix where he became the president? It was the first Netflix show.
Well, it's a remake of the British one, House of Cards.
House of Cards. And I remember being like, I'll be honest, when you hear little bits and pieces of what their platform was and the things they were passing, I was like, I'll vote for Kevin Spacey. I mean, he's a bad man.
Yeah.
I won't have dinner with him or pray to him or anything like that. But we got to make sure our people are taken care of.
I mean, that's part of politics, and that some people feel like you don't, and I get it. It's a balancing act, right? Do you want to keep that district Democratic? So does the messaging have to be different? Do you vote differently on that? But is it in line? And some people want you to move, they always say, we want them to move farther to the left. But mostly centrist characters are figures are the ones who actually win larger races. Yeah, it tends to be listen, I want all the things, all the socialism. But that's not realistic.
No, exactly. I'll tell you what I actually want. But I'm not going to get what I actually want.
And I'm not going to withhold my vote because I don't get everything I want.
And I'm not going to withhold my vote because I'm going to do the best that I can, making sure that the world is as good as it could be.
Yeah, right? If I ask you for 1,000 and you say, well, I have 750. I got 650. I got 650. It's not 1,000, but it's 650 more than I had.
650 more than you had.
So I'll take the 650.
Money. Yes. Is someone giving us money right now? What? Sorry, I got distracted. I'm sorry. That was my bad.
I'm sorry. Right. And I'll, especially if I'm asking for that 1,000 for school lunch program or, funding and libraries.
Exactly. And they're like, oh, you didn't get enough. Yeah, but now our library is still running. Yeah. You know what I mean? Okay, let's finish up here.
All right.
So in April of 1979, her husband was badly injured in a car accident. She really wanted to take care of him. On top of which, she was getting, 1979, dissatisfied with what was happening with liberal politics in the wake of the Reagan Revolution, which it makes me so sad to read that. It's like, it's so heartbreaking. So she decided to leave Congress. Now, there's like argument that like she was going to be challenged in the election and she just didn't want to deal with that. But she was not wrong in seeing Reagan for what it was. Sigh of sadness. She announced her retirement February 1982, saying that she looked forward to a more private life and that the Reagan administration was, quote, not responsive to our constituency. The constituency is going to be more voluble and demanding, and I find myself in a position where I can't help them. She was also really upset about the tactics of the Christian right, as am I, girl, as am I, and which she said, because also I know a lot of really good Christians who are also upset about that. This isn't even about religion at all.
No. Yeah.
So she was saying that they were using the media and symbols of family, morality, and the flag to quiet the dissatisfaction in the people. And I just feel like we need to talk about that now because that's still happening.
Yep.
So she wanted to teach. So she was offered a bunch of different teaching positions, and she accepted being named the Purrington, I don't know what that word is, chair at Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts, that she held for the next 4 years. And she could teach classes in a variety of areas. And then she was questioned, like, why do you want to teach at the most affluent white school in the world? You know? And she said that it would be good to expose these women to her feminist viewpoints and from her background and experiences. But she also did spend the spring in 1985 at Spelman College in Atlanta, which is, am I saying this right? HBC.
Historically Black College.
I said it. Okay. Because I didn't write it down and I always like mix up. I mean, I can't read today. Let's be honest. And so she taught their classes called Congress, Power, and Politics, and also History of the Black Woman in America, which I think, like, I love that because we need more. We need more of this.
What are you talking about? That's too woke. I don't know what you're talking about. That's woke.
God, it's okay. I can't. Lavetta, it's people like you and your wokeness that are the problem.
And whenever I just show up in a place, that means I represent wokeness without even opening my mouth. I just show up, and so it's woke because a Black woman shows up.
That's got to be so fun for you.
Again, I don't entertain foolishness, so
you don't. So you'll walk out of the room sometimes. You're just like,
I'm not doing this.
I got one life. Okay, I'm gonna go.
That's right.
So in 1984, her and C. Dolores Tucker co-founded an organization initially known as the National Black Women's Political Caucus. So this was established during the vice presidential campaign of Geraldine Ferraro. Black women from various political organizations convened to set forth a political agenda emphasizing the needs of women of African descent. So she was chosen as its first chair. Now, this represented a split with an earlier organization called the National Black Women's Political Leadership Caucus, which had been co-founded by Tucker in 1971. Eventually, this whole thing became the National Congress of Black Women.
Okay. Oh, so Dolores Tucker is an interesting one. We got to do her.
Yeah. I was like, okay, let's talk about this. So then she did a lot of speeches at colleges. Because she was nationally known, she tried to teach students to avoid polarization and intolerance. She said, quote, if you don't accept others who are different, it means nothing that you've learned calculus. Interesting.
Love that.
She campaigned for Jesse Jackson during 1984, a political campaign, and 1988, all of which went nowhere. In 1990, she went along with 15 other Black women and men. They formed the African American Women for Reproductive Freedom. Yeah, we need that again. Okay.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Her husband died August 1986. She moved to Florida in 1991. 1993, President Bill Clinton nominated her to be United States Ambassador to Jamaica, but because of poor health, the nomination was withdrawn because she couldn't really do it. She was then inducted to the National Women's Hall of Fame. She died on January 1st, 2005, at her home in Ormond Beach, Florida. She's buried in Forest Lawn Cemetery in Buffalo next to her husband. Where the legend inscribed on her vault reads, "Unbought and unbossed."
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
Shirley Chisholm.
Shirley Chisholm.
Truly amazing. And I, it's interesting to note that she campaigned with Jesse Jackson for his presidential bid. And, I wonder if sexism plays a role in it. I'm not saying that, Reverend Jesse Jackson's sexist. I don't know. I don't know it like that. But the fact that, a lot of Black men are like, it reminds me of an old Eddie Murphy bit, but a lot of Black men are like, a Black woman run, shit, I'm going to run too. It's an old Eddie Murphy bit where he talks about how Jesse saw Harold Washington, who ran in Chicago and won. And Jesse was like, fuck that shit, man. Fuck Harold Washington. I'm going to run for president.
It's like, really? Okay.
I mean, it's just a funny way to talk about how we inspire one another, you inspire people to think, oh, maybe this is a thing, or a lot of people like to say that Dennis Haysbert being the Black president or the president on 24 is what landed in people's minds about an actual Black president.
You gotta, I feel like people I feel like you're not wrong. People kind of have to see it somehow.
Yeah. It's even though Jesse Jackson obviously ran for president in the 80s, but,
yes.
But people say, Dennis Haysbert, because he was such a beloved president on 24, and then Barack Obama comes.
Again, I really do, I think that probably made a difference. You almost don't believe it, but people are dumb. Who else to put it?
People are so dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're so,
I don't think a Black man can be. Wait, that Black man is presidenting right now on my TV screen.
And I'm only half joking, I jest, but also Morgan Freeman. White people love Morgan Freeman. And he's played really president how many times?
100. I'm pretty sure my math is right. Yeah.
It's people do say even watching Star Trek made people go into STEM, or watching Indiana Jones made people become archaeologists.
Yeah. Listen, we showed our kids Indiana Jones the other day. It's maybe not appropriate for the age that the first one. It was fine.
It's terrifying. The first one is
but they were
melting
fine.
Faces. You're like, oh my God, it's terrifying.
I think they're fine. I don't know. We'll find out in 20 years. But I was like, oh yeah, you can be an archaeologist. You will not do that though. You will not do that.
No, but it's so you never know what inspired. So the fact that she ran in 1972, and then is campaigning with Jesse Jackson in the 80s for his presidential bid, and so it's but what an extraordinary life she led, and what a very inspiring. Like I said, when we're talking about these historical figures, we really have to look at them in the time that they were in, because sometimes you look at things
100%. Yep.
In the present day lens, and they didn't always have the verbiage, or they were just in a different time period. They were dealing with different realities too. So
and from their point of view, they probably did the most progressive thing for that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? She sort of negated her blackness and her feminineness, but then said she was proud of it.
Yeah.
You know, other people would have been like, don't look at me like that. Look at me like these things I'm going to pass. But she was like, no, I'm still proud of that. That was probably very progressive at the time.
Yeah. And also she's dealing with in the popular culture, there's the Black Panthers with the afros and the raised fist. And here she is with her relaxed or straightened hair and her conservative appearance. And it's like she's running for office. You can't really say I'm running for president and have a Black power fist up. Like, you can't even do that today. You definitely couldn't do it in 1972. So,
right.
And again, it's politics. I think people are, obviously there's some politicians who are just crooks, right out crooks, and they're just, they're grifters. But I believe that many people go into politics out of the need and the desire for service to the public. So, but thank you so much for sharing part 2 of Shirley Chisholm. And I guess that wraps it up for this episode of Notorious Women Podcast. Guys, remember to follow us on all the things, subscribe, like, share. Please share our podcast with your friends and families.
Yep. The more you share it, the more people will find us.
Yeah, and sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring.
Also, if you want to support us financially, give us some money. You can do that on patreon.com/notoriouswomen. That's patreon.com/notoriouswomen. And, you can give us as little as $2 a month or, I could use a vacation.
Listen, I'm just saying, like, $1,000 a month is not that big of a deal.
No, it's not.
No big deal.
Not. Like,
no big deal.
We will take it. We will take it. And,
hashtag send Lavetta on vacation.
Okay. Hey, Miriam's going to tell you about other ways you can get in contact with us.
And the Instagram I kept referencing the whole time is Notorious Women Podcast. It's very easy to find. And we have some great, we try to get some great things on there. And they're fun and they're funny. And sometimes they are a little serious, like us. And you can also email us at notoriouswmpod@gmail.com. If you have any thoughts or ideas or we messed something up, you can email us. And you can also DM on Instagram if you'd like. Yeah. And that is it.
Slide into our DMs.
Yeah, okay.
That sounds very thirsty. I am. I admit it.
Yeah. If you have some nice gentleman friends you want to send Lavetta, that's awkward.
Listen,
don't do that.
I've been holding out for love. Mm-hmm. Now I want the money.
I encourage this. I'd love, and I love him, but listen, money is nice. Okay.
Oh my God. Have you seen that meme before we go? Have you been watching Queen Charlotte?
I've watched it and I love it so much.
Have you seen the meme where people are like, I want a sugar daddy, and then said sugar daddy is Lady Danbury's husband?
That whole story of the Danburys, I cannot, that whole scene, that moment where it's like, we've done, okay, you go there and I'll go there. And then she goes back in the room. Listen, watch it and then get back to me. Oh no, it's me. Okay, sorry. If you didn't watch Queen Charlotte, you have no idea what I'm talking about. I realize that.
Oh my God, it's so funny. But to all the sugar daddies out there, it's okay. It's okay.
She got through it. She did what she needed to do. And now she is a lady. Okay.
She's a lady. Yes. All right. On that note, we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.